Hello. Uh, Gosh. I'm in a cable jungle. Right. Okay. Welcome to my third episode. Sort of spoken a little bit too much about economics. I guess it's fairly relevant how it affects people. But it's not quite. It's a little bit indirect. I guess a job's very direct to everybody. Actually, one point I would like to make, continuing on money, it's just obviously everything's pretty much revolved around it. I know it's a bit of a bold statement, that, but just in terms of decision making and all that kind of stuff, I think families move, emigration, just the terms of how people can find work and move around is thicker than blood sometimes, and yeah, so it should never be really sort of underestimated. I think obviously money is a realization of loads of things. Obviously, it's a sense of status. You're more sexually desirable. There's tons of little factors that go into play here, which people should really sort of recognize more and more. So we'll checking my recordings on. This instant fear that something's wrong's going. Okay, that's all good. Yeah. So yeah, just money in general makes the world go round. People generally like to sort of just sculpt everything around it. Really, it's a bit of a shame, and I think sometimes, obviously, the problem is that people still thinks that the merit of achievement of a goal or something like that is just to literally just get the best paid job, go for the best paid job all the time, see how much more money you can make. What's the biggest house you can buy? What's the best holiday you can go on? What's the best car, boat? All of those kind of things. And as always, they do give you instant gratification. They give you like that, hey, yeah, you've done really well. And I'm sure people on the street go, wow, you got this big house, you've done really well. Even if you bought it all on credit, which doesn't really make you sort of like the full owner of an item, but everyone sort of celebrates the art of somebody making money, but there's many more levels of which people can achieve, and not necessarily sort of quite understand. And obviously, the fog of how status and everything else works is your major issue in life. I know one person recently, his old boss was offering him a new job, new location, everything was going to be amazing and all those kind of things. And he's a very good thinker. He does think deep and hard about things, and I really do have good discussions with him. And he's like, well, every time I mentioned a number, he was gonna pay me that and more and match it, and you name it, it was gonna happen. And this location probably might have been able to get him sort of He could have got maid services to help him out with all of like his stuff and stuff, like his washing, his ironing, all of those kind of things, which I guess in those terms improves your living standard. But it would have meant to mean moving to a different country. You would have he would have moved with his wife. He wouldn't have had any sort of contact with all his close relations. He possibly could have made new friends, but again, that's all of that is lost. He would have had a wife who wouldn't have spoken the language, so she would have been at home, could have been depressed, could have had a kid, could have got divorced shortly afterwards, and hey presto, he's on the scrap heap. Most of his earnings going on to child support and her support, and that's the sort of the ruin of his life and the major regret. Obviously, people want to attain all the sort of the fruits of labour and stuff like that, and I think men are very sort of geared up to saying, right, earn, let's get the money, follow the money. Now, I think men obviously have got a very self-destructive edge on them as well, where they're more than happy to obviously spend as well, but when they're in family mode, they're there to just earn. There's obviously the Japanese style of earning until you die, and it's quite common that a lot of men work until their age of retirement, and then it's pretty much over after that. So always just be wary of how far you should be pushing yourself and stuff like that, and there is a life to be had from Monday to Friday. There is like the time where you should really be having a meal with your family. You should be helping putting your kids to bed. All of those things, because it's not really a relationship if you're working all the hours of the day, and you're losing things, but you're not quite sure of it because you've got plenty of money in your bank account. Come the weekend, you can buy all of these things, and probably you're just buying a lot of impulse buys as well, just to give you that little bit of gratification. But it doesn't necessarily make you truly happy. I think everything you should think about is, well, not everything, but this is quite morbid, but I think there's no harm in thinking about when you die, the legacy that you leave behind. Money is not really going to be one of those that everyone's going to be like, oh, well, like, they're not going to be talking about how much money the person earned or anything like that. Maybe they might mention he's a hard worker, supported his family, but the really things that matter is the effect that you've had on those people, the sort of messages that you've passed on, the sort of the habits, the laughs, all of those kind of things that people sort of copy and take into their own personalities. That's the stuff of you which will live forever. And if you do want an eternal life, that's, well, not something that's going to go on forever, but just something that potentially has a greater effect on the world and is good, which I think is probably the most important thing. Then, from from that observational sort of perspective, to be there to support is always the most important thing. The bare minimum, obviously, of providing food, shelter, and all those kind of things is important. In a Western world, though, it's fairly easily achievable. You can sort of minimise your spending to certain degrees, and I don't know, just have fun with people. People are can always surprise you. They all have capacities to sort of do something else and do something more, and you can always improve on your life with people as well. You can work at things with each other. So there's never sort of there's never really a dull moment when it comes to being with people. I mean, obviously, if you was living in pure isolation on your own in a house and all those kind of things, then I do question whether you're really enjoying life. But yeah, all the toys, gadgets, and gizmos, they do give you a certain level of happiness. But I really think sometimes just like children know that sometimes they're just random objects. You can play with them and you can devise sports games and all those kind of things, and it really, you can get instant laughs and you can play dramas, you can impersonate different people when you play games, and it's just endless sort of things that you can do, far beyond what you could get with, I don't know, Grand Theft Auto, where you're just some megalomaniac sort of character that just shoots down everybody. There's every single character that you could play with somebody else, and people do that anyway, but it's not as one-dimensional as what you think to live in sort of a modest lifestyle. If you're living in a very rich lifestyle, there's things that you're losing in comparison to if you're living in a very sort of non-materialistic lifestyle, but you're a big on people and how much you discuss and all those kind of stuff with people and all that kind of stuff. You'll be surprised how amazing it is when you come round to a house where the one family just sits and watches the TV and they're not necessarily sort of tuned in and they're slow talking and all those kind of things, compared to another family, maybe just like a rural farming family and stuff like that, where they're all talking around the table. They're much more to offer you in terms of chat and talk and all those kind of things. And that human connection thing and the bonding thing is probably the most relevant thing that you could ever have. And people just don't sort of necessarily realise those sort of things. So yeah, definitely important things to remember. I think friendships are an important thing to sort of uphold and try and maintain and to work towards. It's always I always find it very sort of a little bit peculiar, really, more than anything else, is where people sort of have so many friends on Facebook and all those kind of things, like ridiculous amounts of friends and stuff like that. And I just feel like the more friends that you're having, the more diluted the actual friendship that you're actually having with somebody. So I think you can have a really special bond. Like, imagine if you had one friend that you confided everything with them and all that kind of stuff. They'll be your closest friend, and that sort of thing is amazing. But when you're one of those, when you're somebody that just likes to sort of maintain the title of somebody's name as a friendship sort of thing, like a tag on Facebook or something like that, where you're flying around and you're slightly superficial in the hi, how you doing, all that kind of stuff, but you never have the opportunity to say that I'm not feeling well, this is what's wrong with me, I've got these problems, and the discussion of all those kind of things, and this is how I'm thinking right now, do you feel the same, and stuff like that. There's always that sort of stopping moment where you're not sure whether you should be saying that thing next and all those kind of things. That's not really a friend. It's somebody that you're just sort of very lightly scratching the surface with. And to have that many people that you're in that sort of confinement to is sort of it's like a type of torture, because you're not necessarily directly you're not sort of like directly involved with them. You're not just sort of what's the word? You're basically, it's like you've got like a distance between you and a stick and a carrot sort of thing, and you never really can sort of attain the carrot, and you're just wangling around, and you're not necessarily sort of attaining any sort of gratification, even though you know it sounds like you should be happy, and you've got tons of friends, and that's the mark of a happy person. Like somebody who thinks they should be happy, they've got tons of money, they've got endless money to do all the things that they have, they've got the freedom to fly to anywhere they choose the next morning, and all those kind of things. There's every reason why they should be happy, but yet they're not. And that's a real fundamental question, again, when it comes to friendships. And I think another thing about friendships, there's two little factors. I think one of the most important things is the friendships that bring out the best in you are probably the more are very important factors. The ones that you can get close to, and the ones that entertain you. Now, I think the ones that entertain you are very sort of you probably got to be the most cautious about, because the people that entertain you can be still fairly manipulative. So you just got to be very wary of the ones that can entertain. I'm sure, obviously, the entertaining kind of friends and all those kind of things, you really, there should be that sort of side of them which you could confide in and stuff like that. But if you can't see that, then there definitely is some issues there. That person is not really like laying out their cards. They're just hiding something from you. So you just need to be very wary of those kind of things. But not to say, I mean, there's some incredibly funny people out there. They're amazing and stuff like that, but they could be pressured into doing that, and they're probably like that for the rest of their lives. And there's sort of no drilling that out of them sometimes, and it's a dangerous thing. You need to have the correct balance of honesty with a person, and not just full fun entertainment, because I think, again, you're lost there. You could say, I've got great funny friends, they're endlessly funny, and they're entertaining and amusing, but you can be very much isolated from very entertaining friends. They can sort of they can be the sort of the dominant sort of part of any party, yet you're stuck there with sort of just some kind of like spectator sport which is going on for you. So it's not necessarily like anything's happening there, and you really need sort of a friend that's got the interaction going, keeping you going with everybody else and stuff like that. Everyone's getting a crack of the whip, everyone's having a turn. So and that leads me back to the person that gets the best out of you is very important. Not so that you're feeling like you're the high and mighty person, because that's not a balance. You need that person to have that sense of honesty, and that honesty is very powerful, because when you've got somebody who's your friend and you can actually highlight to them, I don't think that's right, I don't think that's you're doing that in the correct manner or the right way, and you've upset me and all those kind of things. I think that's extremely important. That's like it's very uncomfortable and it's not nice. Nobody wants to do that, and it's very handy if you can do that sober as well. So when beer's into the mix, it doesn't really help out too much. You never really get to some kind of sense on an argument after a while. But if you do have that sort of ability to tell somebody where they're wrong in a friendship, that's very empowering, because you've actually given somebody the ability to improve themselves at that point. Even though obviously everyone's genuinely at the time thinks that they're having a personal attack at them and stuff like that. It's not fair that everyone's ganging up, or I'm not necessarily ganging up, but having a poke at me for this, I'm doing this wrong. But you're having an endless sort of ability to improve on things, and maybe just understand each other a bit more, and understand perspectives and empathise with the other person. And all of those parts is just to improve the person, improve you. So never feel sort of bad about that. And if a friendship can bust through those barriers where you can say, I've got a disagreement with this, I don't think this is happening and stuff like that. Obviously, if emotions get charged and stuff like that, it's very difficult to manage and it's very tricky. But if you still retain friendship after something like that, and obviously you haven't been abusive to each other and stuff like that, this is like the status of your friendship has improved, and that's probably one of the most important statuses that you can attain. So yeah, so always, whenever somebody says, "Oh, I've got one close friend" and stuff like that, I think sometimes you got to think as them being very rich. They've got a very rich life in that sense, compared to somebody that says, "Oh, I'm reaching 500 friends on Facebook and stuff like that." I generally sort of start to feel sorry for them after a while. So yeah, just check it out from that perspective. Anyway, I just went on a little tangent there. I just was thinking about sport this morning, because I want to just cover that subject. Because it definitely interests. Like, sport is one of those things which it's a very sort of large thing on life, like sport. Yeah, and yet it's not at the same time. There's a paradox there, but yeah, it's just like, especially for men sort of are grown up. We're sort of thrown into the mix of sport. Who's your sporting team? Who do you support? Who's these kind of things? We're sort of we're again ushered into sport much quicker, and because of our physicality and things like that, it's always the thing about sports and drivers and all of a lot of male sort of role models that we all look up to and stuff like that are sporting stars and all those kind of things. You never really get some sort of amazing scientist or engineer that's achieved all these great things. I mean, you do get a few, but the media sort of starts ripping them apart as some kind of dodgy thing before you even really sort of get to see, like, you get to see all their interpersonal deals and their business affairs and how they fire people, and there's too much crap before you could even sort of start to look at somebody like that as an icon. Yet a sports person doesn't necessarily have too much on the go when it comes to sort of personalities and sort of hiring and firing people and all those kind of things. So a sportsman, I guess when they get a little bit older and they get a little bit sort of they play around a bit, there are stories generated for them, but it does go off the cards. And I guess with the sportsman, you do have to have a certain level of discipline where you you don't drink, you don't do all those kind of things to attain the highest like standards now, where everyone's competing to get to the highest point. You don't drink, you're really sort of curtailing you going out on the weekends, having late nights and all those kind of things. So yeah, your role models are sort of generated quite quickly for a young boy, and yeah, a sport like it's a very funny like day that we live now. I think I don't really quite understand how people select certain like clubs and teams as theirs. So in the past, obviously everyone sort of lived in a certain geographical area, and that's what they associated as them. But as the majority of sports become more international and people just go from one place to another and all those kind of things, you do have that sort of like local club sort of thing going on, but is it really local? Not really. It's just a sort of a little hub which gets managed by different managers from different countries and different people. I guess that the major thing that's local is maybe the ticket sales, which is generated by the stadium. And even that, sometimes people are just travelling from different areas which are closer to other teams anyway. But there's that sort of association which is going on just by location alone, and it doesn't really it doesn't tie up with any sort of any reason really, which I guess that's what's the main thing about sport. And yet, what is the major sort of thing about sport? Well, I guess from my perspective, I always say the best thing about sport is somebody that obviously displays a discipline on a field, has got sort of amazing quality that they can display, has got great sportsmanship, leadership that can be displayed on the field. And I think obviously what makes great sport is heightened, like extreme heightened levels of competitiveness and the ability to never sort of give up. That is the major quality, I think, of sport, which is what makes it extremely exciting. That sort of that boxer that can, obviously this is the most brutal sort of side of sport, but the boxer that can sort of take a punch, hit the ropes, get back up, and then give it his all afterwards and really sort of go into it and stuff like that. And he's taking punches, then the other person's taking punches, but then he's not giving up, and the determination and the sweat and the blood and everything, just not to the pure heart of it, of just never giving up, is the pureness of like sport. And I think yeah, this just as a typical example is when you get one of those rich clubs and you play against a poor side, and they're not really trying that hard, and then they give up, and then like a number of points or goals are scored. It's not really entertainment after a while. It's just I'm here to see some sort of parade or something where like somebody just walks down the road and shows off or something like that. It's not really anything of any sort of significance. The key thing that people are trying to look out for is two opposing sides or people that have got that determination, and it not necessarily even like the skill. People don't really necessarily. People actually prefer the determined underdog with no skills, fighting with his heart and just pushing himself through and stuff like that. They're always the crowd pleasers. Obviously, somebody who's obviously dedicated themselves to some kind of like hard discipline where they've shown immense quality and all those kind of things, I think people revere it and they go, oh, that's special and stuff like that. But they don't necessarily, they can't tune into that as well, because maybe they haven't necessarily sort of put in an effort or so much to achieve such a discipline. Yet people know when like somebody hasn't necessarily got the skills and all those kind of things, but has just put in their all and pushed themselves hard and stuff like that, and just said, right, I'm not going to give up now. This is, you can score as many as you like. I'm just going to keep on going for it. I'm just going to sort of pick myself up and then just go for it. That is the art of sport. And so where the sport has come from is a mixture of our sense of battle and war and hunting. So they're your two sort of drivers, particularly, which are kicking in sort of on an ingrained biological level for us, where we've learned and attained skills throughout time where we was nomads walking across the lands, hunting and gathering and scavenging for things. So we do have that sort of mentality that when the symbol of you sticking a spear inside an animal is the same as you striking a football to a goal and stuff like that. It's the same sort of thing. The sport where you play in teams is the pack mentality, and obviously, as we're very social creatures, that obviously team sports is far more sort of enjoyed in comparison to your individual sports, not alone, but tennis is pretty, and tennis and golf are fairly popular. Obviously with a team sport, you have the symbolic of sort of battles and wars, and a lot of comparisons are always made between those two types of things. When you have two opposing sides, it's war, it's the rivalry. Rivalry, obviously, when in old times you would have the two local areas fighting around for their territory and land against one another and all those kind of things. So it does tune into a lot of those ideals. But one thing that's key with sport is that you just got to be wary of how states use it to fog the masses. So obviously that was well known in the Roman times. They would put on performances to sort of disguise the masses of how great they were as a nation and all those kind of things. Yet they could be running out of money and all those kind of things. So we would disguise the masses. They would be in poverty. They'll be starving. Yet we'll be putting on great shows at the same time. And it's kind of sort of similar to what's happening now. Sport is ridiculously popular as it's ever been before, and sports internationalized and all those kind of things. And at the same time that the popularity of the sport is happening, you do have diminished sort of the economy is diminishing in every single level right now. So the great distraction is there, and obviously it does really wind people up when you start mentioning this, but it's just like it's a blown up ball which people are throwing and kicking around on a field. Why are you spending so much time and effort looking at who's transferred to who, what tactics they're playing, what's the formation, creating a mock league where you can play a fantasy against everybody, trying to work out who's going to be playing next week. There's endless sort of little things that you could just totally waste your time on when it comes to sport. Again, you can buy computer games to sort of reenact sporting events and all those kind of things. There's just endless distractions that can be recreated. You can buy memorabilia. You can buy the sports kits. You can do endless things which just generate a distraction, and it's a fairly fun distraction, especially when you're demonstrating. But I do question again that sporting occasion where you've got two teams giving it their all, or two people giving it their all, and there's just pure determination that is being displayed from either side. Not necessarily sort of happens all of the time, and it's a rare thing to have and behold. A majority of the time, you're seeing fairly simple stuff. People that are fairly nervous on the field, even to be playing at a big stage, trying not to make too many mistakes. Not going into that mode of just like, I'm never going to give up, I'm determined, but more so just like, I'm not going to make a mess here, I'm trying to do this to my all, I'm trying to do this and that, and they're just thinking of not screwing up too much. And obviously when you're in that mindset, the screw-ups happen more often. So yeah, majority of the time, people are watching very basic matches, very boring matches. So there isn't really sort of a great sort of sense of fun there sometimes. You're thrown in thousands of adverts. I must admit some of the adverts are high quality adverts and they can be quite entertaining, but you're thrown in their patriotism as well, which is a little bit of a dangerous thing as well, just to be thrown into the mix. But there is one little thing that we just got to sort of remember here as well, especially on like a supporters level, is that there is the sense of belonging, which again is one of your little ones that you should always be wary of. That gang on the corner that sells drugs will always have that sense of belonging for you. But do they have really your best interests at heart? That's the one that's questionable. The team supporters club that which stays on the pub on the corner, they'll be there for you on the weekend. They'll have They'll have plenty of pints with you. They'll discuss plenty of football and all those kind of things. But are you talking about the real subjects in life? About how your wife and kids are going, how your job's doing, how are you feeling, where your life's going, all those kind of like, how have you made many friends in your life? What all those very deep questions. I very much doubt most of those people will really want to have those conversations, and you're surrounding yourself again with those people that just are having the conversations that do not grind that deep. It's always one of those things where you go into an office or you go into any sort of working environment, particularly for men, and you really sort of, just to attain a certain level of conversation, you need to know about the sports and the matches and all those kind of things, what's been happening recently in your local league, and you talk to the other men and you offer a couple of senses of what your opinion of where things are going and how you were shocked by certain pieces of news, and then you're part of the fellowship of like the sporting chatting people. Now, so I've definitely entertained that sort of conversation plenty of times before. I try and sort of lead into sort of I try to approach the moral sort of sense of like decisions that have been made and things like that sometimes. So you can obviously offer a lot of thought into just even silly things like, well, irrelevant things like sport. But it's like a code of conduct. You need to sort of know how to talk about sport with other men and stuff like that. you're at a wedding and you're sitting at a table with another guy. They're going to talk to you about sport. They're not really going to bring up too many things about anything else. I mean, probably I would, but I don't think many other people will. And you can obviously it's a script where you can start discussing things straight away. Oh yeah, this team, yeah. Even if you're opposing sides, your rival teams, there'll be a little smile with each other, and then you'll be discussing things. And there's this sort of nice little kinship which you do, which you'll sort of like admit, oh yeah. If you're talking to the rival team supporter, his performance is doing very well. You'll sort of show him like, oh, your team's actually a little bit more respected than what we actually really think they are, and stuff like that. Which it creates that sort of like little bonding time and stuff like that, as if to say that we're on opposing sides, but yet we're so close at the same time. But I guess. It is one of those sort of if there's going to be awkward silences or that, which one are you going to choose? And obviously everyone's going to choose that one over anything else. And then obviously sometimes if a certain sporting field isn't yours, then they'll quickly just grasp, okay, what else? What other sport you're into? It's tennis. We can talk about tennis if you like. We can go golf. Like what else are you into? And Formula One. You go through all of those ones, and then if you're still stuck, then you got some issues after that point. I think like a man's going to be looking at you, going, "Oh, okay, have a nice time." So. Yeah, the sporting lingo and stuff like that. I find it kind of a little bit annoying and irritating after a while, but when you're sometimes engrossed in it and you can sort of you talk to somebody and you're like, oh yeah, this player, he was never really sort of supported his team. He just sort of left us and he's just chased the money and all those kind of things. It's entertaining and stuff like that. But I think just people, sometimes when they mention these things, there's sort of a lot of people which get to a subject that they're trying to talk about is actually something that's relevant to them to a certain extent. So like a player who's obviously left them for another club, could be something where I don't know, parents have left them, or like in a supermarket one day, or the sense of abandonment's happened for them, or the girlfriend's left them, or something like that. People again will always just sort of use the emotion which is associated with that topic and play it into it. So people are trying to sort of discuss things on different levels and trying to explain their own emotions, but they're using sort of a code to get their emotionals out on and stuff like that. And obviously when you have a very passionate supporter that uses intense emotion of how they'd express things and stuff like that, they're obviously pent up with emotions and anger of things, but it might not necessarily be about the sporting team that they have, but about personal issues that they're having themselves. And it's sometimes interesting to read that. You do get the sense that sometimes people can be certainly troubled by their teams, and then you can have certain. You do actually obviously get the sense of those. The very interesting one is the proud person of their team. Pride in one's team is one of the interesting things because, I mean, really, maybe you've bought a few tickets and you've bought a football kit and stuff like that. Maybe you've sort of defended a football player's actions on a field, and maybe you've cheered your team along on the pitch and stuff like that. But really, I mean, what is the team to that person, and what is the team like? If that person disappeared the next day, that team's going to keep on going. And again, if that team disappeared the next day, it'd be a bit strange for that person, maybe for a couple of months, but I guess that person will just continue on as if nothing happened. Well, it'll be probably a little bit more shocking for them, but it'd be like, oh, okay, well, my team's disappeared. I better either support another team or just carry on. It's just end of season for me now in a prolonged state. So this sort of deep connection that people sort of state that they have with their teams is just all superficial, and nothing really sort of sets into anything that they really have. Yeah, so always be wary of people that where sport is their major conversation and is their only sort of conversation. I guess there are people that can sort of generate conversations beyond that sometimes and stuff like that, but it's a little bit of too much of it is a warning sign. It is one of those sort of social things that most men have to have, really, almost. But how much is that absorbing their life? And then you got to think that if something is taking over their life that much, they're not really going to have too much in terms of anything else to give beyond that, in terms of conversation after a while. So look out for those things when you're around. And be aware. Anyway, that concludes the third episode. Thank you very much for your time. Still haven't uploaded any of these yet, but they will be done shortly. And I'll have another one this week, and that'll be the last one, and then we'll commence again next week. Thank you very much, and catch up with you soon.